because I have to. It's very basic in me. I feel at times that I'll die if I can't do artwork. I grew up in a family of artists with, on the Mexican border between Mexico, Texas, and New Mexico. And artwork is just something very basic in my life. It's something we've done all our lives. I've painted, I've drawn since I was tiny, very little. I had a drawing table, which I still have, and it was little. It was like 2 feet off the ground. And Tony Lama, the boot maker, always made my boots. And his son, young Tony, was my father's friend. They went through school together. And he made my belts, all the tooling. And I got to go down and watch them make these things. And the ultimate in craftsmanship. These people, this is what they did. And I was so taken by their craft and what they were doing. And to see art everywhere you look, that whole part of the world, the culture says art. You may not have any money, but the door frames are painted. The tile is decorative. You have to tile the floor to keep the dirt off. So they decorated it. Everywhere you go, there's decoration. And my mother was a painter and an artist. And I had an uncle who was a sculptor. And they grew up on a ranch. So I grew up with this whole background of horses, art, and a very free way of life. And that's why I do art. I have to. It's very basic in me. Not particularly. As an adult, a lot of my artwork has been thrown into construction, like designing the building we're in. This is a sculpture. To me, this is a sculpture. But then it had to meet all the requirements for engineering, and I love every bit of that. I love the whole process of construction, designing special things into buildings. To me, it's very important. All the buildings are very comfortable, friendly buildings. And so I took that as well as doing my artwork at the same time. A lot of my inspiration goes back to my childhood, what I've done all my life. And I started really, when I first came to this valley, I was not very inspired. I was really turned off. I said, you've got to be kidding. We're not going to come back to a desert. You know, I said, okay, I'll give it 2 years, and then I'm leaving. I'm out of here. That's it. And that was the agreement. We'd be here 2 years. Well, it took no time at all to meet people, find out the wonderful culture that's here, the wonderful people that are in Ridgecrest and China Lake. And then I just fell in love with the Sierras and the mountains and the desert, the flowers. It's a very grateful country out here. The slightest rain and you get a flower. No rain, no flower. The mountains, the shadows on the mountains really attracted me. I was drawn to that, and I still am. I look at the Sierras every day and see how the shadows change. And that's why the name of this show was Shadows. It's because of the dimensionality, and that it adds the dimensionality to artwork as the diverse people add to a culture. And so we have a very rich culture and a very rich environment to paint or do artwork in. The influence for my artwork has always been society and surroundings. That's really the basic part of it. I do some fictional things like dragons because I like to do them. But if you look closely at the dragon, it's got very soft eyes and it's picking up the culture that's around here. You'll notice my dragons are not mean. I've tried to make mean dragons and I can't. They always come out really sweet and docile. This dragon, his name is Anna Melinda. She's very sweet. She doesn't start any fires. She's always wanted to, but she couldn't puff a smoke if she had to. She has little bitty legs because she's nothing but fat and lazy. So she just sits on a shelf and she behaves herself at all times. But you look at her and she's very soft, and even to touch her, she's a very soft dragon. You want to pet her on the nose, like you would a horse. And that's the other thing. I grew up with many horses, and I've done horse art. Art with horses in it, art sculpture with horses. And I've gotten away from that. I'm doing mountains. And my inspiration for this show was, I had three things that led me into this show. One is that it had to be fun. I had to enjoy the whole process, every bit of it. I had to like the artwork, enough to where I would want to keep it myself. I don't just make things for other people. I make them really to complete something inside me. And I just really wanted to capture the local area. To me, it's got so many moods and phases. That's why. I'm very fond of Anna Belinda the Dragon. I like most of the murals. In fact, I like all of the murals. I did one special one for Pat Brownberry, and that's Mount Tom. And I'm very fond of the carving in it. It takes a long time to carve these, but they're very architectural. And in fact, the name of this artwork that I do, these tile murals, they are also designed to go on walls. They're architectural tile. So that's ultimately, I will be doing more of that, where they will not be on boards, but they'll be directly onto buildings, indoors and outdoors, so that it's architectural tile. And so that's sort of my inspiration on all of this. I'm very fond of Mount Tom, and I like it. And that was actually done, I started it on Pat Brownberry's deck up out of Bishop. And her view from her deck is that mountain. The 4 seasons. Okay, this is how the desert affects me. And you'll see they're not smiling. First is spring, and she's just sort of sweet. We like spring here. Spring's nice. We all look forward to it. So spring is a wonderful thing. And then comes summer. And you look at summer, and that's my version of the summer sun. And it's fierce, it's hateful, it's got hateful eyes. And that's sort of my attitude towards summer. I do not like summers here, they're too hot. Then we have fall, and he's wistfully looking for the next season, winter. This seems like this is human nature. And winter is already, he's wistfully looking for spring. That's our nature. As soon as we get what we want, I don't care how hot the heat is in the summer, in spring we're going, boy, I wish it was summer. And then it's summer and you're going, I wonder when fall's ever going to get here. And then you say, well, you know, I wish the winter would come and it will kill all the flies and make everything wonderful again. And then you've had winter for quite a while and you're back to wanting spring back. That's human nature, and that's what I tried to capture in that series of the 4 masks, are those 4 elements that we have here, as they're presented here. The black and white work on the wall, where the black background and the very white object is done on purpose. It's to show shadows and to meet the shadows of the show. And what white work will do is it will emphasize just the shadows, that even the colorful work, the shadows are there, but you don't see them. You see the color, and you see a shininess. The shadows are all done in a very flat, it's just the clay fired, and it's fired twice, so it's high fired. It's all porcelain, and the reason it was done is to bring that out. And when you put these pieces, especially the ones that are the bowls that show the movement, they're done to be put out in an office or a home, and all day long the shadows change. They're called shadows alive. I often call them shadows alive. And they move and they take on a character all day long as they change. These are done slightly different. The shadow bowls are done by hand, and they're very slow. It takes a long time to build those. The other ones that are cast, first I cast an artichoke from my son's garden. And then I fire that, and then I cast something inside it. I put the porcelain inside it as a slab. Then take that out, and it's very flat. It doesn't have the shadows that you see on these. And that's just the beginning. That's where I begin from. Then, and even though that process is quite lengthy, then I start carving. And I spend a day carving. Just the artichoke alone was probably a day carving. Each leaf lifted out. I know the poinsettia was actually a poinsettia. I cast a poinsettia. Everything you see here was 12% bigger in its real life. The clay shrinks 12% when it goes through the firing stages. And each leaf was, when you see it coming out of the mold, it's very flat and pretty boring. Each leaf is cut out, lifted, more clay put under it, and put back on again. And so it takes time. So when you see these pieces, you're not realizing how much time goes into them. But a lot of time goes into making those, and I love doing that. I love sculpture, and I love the carving. The arts community in Ridgecrest is very special. It's unique. When the community was developing, it developed with scientists as the background, the engineers, the physicists, the chemists. With them, all of those people bring music, they bring arts, they bring their own art, their artwork with them. Whether it was the physicist hired or the chemist, one of the great artists we had in our valley was Bill McEwen, and he was a chemist. And they quite often brought their spouses, and they were the artists. And this brought a very marvelous level of artwork, where you have people that have studied artwork, and they came here just much like I did, looking at the hills going, oh my God, and then staying and finding the beauty in it, and reproducing that in paintings, in batiks. It just goes on and on. We have so many wonderful artists with so many different mediums here. And so I feel the diversity in the art community here is magnificent. We're very fortunate. The part that I feel that the community allows is they allow experimentation. And you have to experiment to get to the next level in art. You have to produce bad art. One year we needed more money. We're always needing money here at the museum. We needed money for some harebrained thing that we were doing. We didn't have any money. So we had a bad art show. So what other community would have a bad art show? And the artists were encouraged to bring some of their really lousy art, and we were going to sell it. It was a huge success. People came in with all of these things that we were going to throw out. We were going to take hammers, we were going to smack. We throw a lot of our artwork away. And people are always trying to rescue it from our trash cans. And so we had a bad art show. And it was wonderful. We sold all sorts of things. People would buy things and say, oh, I've always wanted something like this. Well, they're buying a painting for $5 or $10. I think we had like a $10 limit on what we could charge. It was very low. And we had the whole interior portion of the gallery filled with bad art, and it all sold. Oh my gosh, we took very little home. Very little went to the dump that day.
Maybe we should do that again.
We've thought about it through the gallery committee. We've thought whether or not we would actually do another bad art show. They're a lot of fun, and the community seemed to really like it. You have to be very brave. And you talk about what's good about this community. We have some very brave artists. Who's going to take their bad art and exhibit it in a museum? And it was full. We had a wonderful show.